Oh, what's good, my Meta Society? It is your host with the most, Shadow Look, back at you with another video. Make sure you guys like, comment, and are subscribed to the channel. It's absolutely free. That is how you help my channel get into the algorithm. Highly appreciate if you go ahead and do that. Yes, you get two today. Like I said, I was on vacay, so I'm backed up. I'm just trying to knock these videos that people requested out of the way. Now, one actually that I have been getting, for quite some time, but I haven't talked about it, right, was what is the YouTube Yarda? It's a term that gets used around the taboo gang prison genre type of content creators, right? Um, so pretty much, the YouTube Yarda is an imaginary um, saying, like a prison saying, right? That was used to clown individuals who think that social media is prison, or individuals that still think that they're in prison, or individuals that think that people give a fuck about their time in prison, or that they care about their time in prison. So it was pretty much used to kind of like clown these individuals, right? Trying to run social media like prison, like trying to set prison rules and how people shouldn't be doing this and doing that, and people can't do this and can't do that, and back in, if it was up to them, they would get whacked, and that because they were known to be heavy hitters, and acting and trying to live like if they're still incarcerated when they're free as a bird. And a lot of these individuals are not even gang affiliated no more, and some of them even fell off and are considered no good, right? So trying to regulate YouTube like if it's some type of, you know, prison with gang rules and gang terminology, and acting like if they're still locked up, right? And trying to act tough and about shit, and the world is seeing this and laughing, right? Because they can realize that, well, you're not in jail no more. Nobody gives a fuck. This is not prison, so let it go. You're not scaring nobody with your puffing your chest out, um like, and even worse, considering the fact of their ages, right, the age that they are, and yet acting the way that they are, and then claiming to be OGs that have been around, yet they're behaving like females, the opposite of an OG, right? And trying to impress people with these outlandish stories that they tell. So people would grab those individuals and throw them into the YouTube Yarda, which would be, this fantasy, world that these individuals concocted in their head without even realizing it, right? Because even though the trolls are the ones that use the term, right? Essentially, that is what was happening before it even got thrown a name to it. By, I wouldn't necessarily. Well, I guess he would troll, which would be Triple OG is the one that would quote the term YouTube Yarda, right? And he would make videos, highlighting these individuals' stupid behaviors, and just the way that the foolish way that they act, and these individuals weren't able to see, what he was trying to say in his videos, right? They took it as like insults, but in reality, he was just, showing them like, look how you're behaving, like grow the fuck up, right? This ain't prison. But they wanted to relive their gangster days, but on the internet, without actually getting their hands dirty, but wanting the respect like they would have got in the streets. Except this is the internet where people don't give a fuck. You get what I mean? Now, would I categorize my channel on the YouTube? No, I've never spoken about prison on my channel ever, because it's pointless. I don't see the point to it. There's nothing out of that, right? And you're free now, so stop trying to act like you're incarcerated, right? And some stuff, is not made to be talked about because it's nobody's business. You get what I mean? Um, and for those very reasons, more for the fact that it's nobody's business, right? Like this information, I don't see how it would be useful to anybody. You get what I mean? Except wanting to be praised as, damn, my boy, you really did that. You really been through that. You really went through. You get what I mean? Insecurities is the only reason why it's done. That way individuals could be given that recognition, that tough recognition. Oh, damn, that boy's really about it. Insecurities. People, want that praise. They crave the praise or miss it, for whatever reasons that they do, right? But that is essentially what it is. It's not actually something that people really, think, exists or actually created, right? But it's more of an insult to these individuals who, are acting like if they're, top dog in the yard with their made up stories. So that is why it was created, right? Like, oh, watch out, look, these guys are right here, the downest ones of the YouTube, yard, because of how they present themselves, how they come across, and how, with their videos, and like, to people, how it's actually looking. You know what I mean? Like, they're trying to glorify or trying to gain some type of praise, or like, if they're actually, did something, good with themselves, right, by being incarcerated, right? Like, if that's a badge of honor. I mean, they won't say that that's actually what they're trying to do, but clearly that's the only reason why they're doing what they're doing, right? Because there's no other reason for it. Like, you're not on my level, my boy. You know how many fools I shanked up when I was busted? Yeah, well, that was then, this is now. So, it's going to be a lot harder trying to get that done out here now, right? So, save that for the birds, bro, because it's not going to face nobody out here. It's a whole different ballgame, right? So, no, trying to intimidate people, or trying to put them beneath you just because of that status is ridiculous in itself, because even in the street world, nobody gives a fuck about what prison you were at or what level yard you were in, right? If you say the wrong thing, you're going to get smoked, period. No one's asking what level yards people were at, and they're not going to be impressed by it, right? So the fact that these individuals are trying to come across like that, right, or trying to glorify that, or try to make it seem like it's a real thing on, the internet, is ridiculous in itself. Because there's nothing gangster about trying to intimidate people through a screen on social media and arguing with people that you don't even know who the fuck they are. Because there's nothing tough about that. So looking really cartoonish, clownish. And that essentially is what the YouTube yard is, right? And then people then have whatever channels they consider to be within that yard, right? The people that they, I guess, think fits the profile of what I described, they'll throw them in there, right? So it changes depending on who you're asking, right? But you would see similar faces always within the list of individuals who come across like that. They may not like, that they're put in that basket, but they only have themselves to blame for being in that basket or being put in that basket, because it's their very own actions that is the reason why people throw them in that basket. So they can only be mad at themselves for the behavior. But overall, that's just my opinion and breakdown on what the YouTube Yarda is. What are your thoughts? Leave in the comments. Shadow we up.